The cursed giant tree, known as the Tree of the Abyss, stretches its huge red roots downward like an upside-down tower, forming a dark path that leads to the underworld. Those who are swallowed by the tree, like the young girl Pomeranian, do not simply walk inside a normal trunk. Instead, they are completely absorbed into a chaotic maze where different dimensions overlap. This leaves them trapped in a strange space, standing before massive roots that throb with rainbow-colored energy. Outside the tree, panic and desperation take over. Roderick, Servandi, and Osiris launch their strongest combined attacks against the tree, trying to save the trapped students. Their attacks crash into the barrier, causing a huge explosion of light. But when the smoke clears, the thick wall of red vines is completely untouched. The three men stand there, tired and helpless, forced to accept that no power from outside can reach the sealed world inside the tree. As he looks at the giant roots, Osiris understands the harsh truth. This dimensional prison can only be broken from the inside. Ancient stories say the roots of the tree go down endlessly into a deep, dark void. According to a mysterious book, the tree will drag everyone it has consumed down into the deepest part of the abyss. Inside the flooded first floor of the tower, Vikir tightly grips the goblin guide by the throat without mercy. Dakarivia and the small blue spider float nearby, watching quietly. Under pressure, the goblin forces something up from its throat and suddenly vomits a thick stream of dark blue liquid straight into Vikir's hand. Dakarivia and the spider stare in disgust as the sticky liquid splashes across his arm. The frightened goblin nervously asks if this is a good enough reward. In Vikir's hand are several glowing orbs. These magical candies permanently increase abilities. Red increases strength, green increases agility, and blue increases health. Vikir realizes that clearing a floor gives these rewards, just like he remembers from his past life. Eating them raises a person's physical abilities forever, no matter their level. He remembers his friend Piggy talking about a popular game where players level up and assign points to their stat. Vikir understands that the system inside the tree works in a very similar way. He clenches his fist and steadies himself, reminding himself that even though it feels like a game, this is real and deadly. He recalls Amdugia's cruel belief that betrayal and ugliness are the true nature of humans. The demon created this twisted place to prove that idea. The Tree of the Abyss was built to trap people and push out their worst instincts, using them as sacrifices to grow stronger for the coming age of destruction. Vikir thinks about his past and realizes he hid his identity as the Night Hound to stop this disaster before the demons noticed him. Now he sees that his efforts failed. Pushing those thoughts aside, he focuses on the current situation and wonders where the other students are. He raises his fist threateningly, and the terrified goblin quickly stutters that it truly does not know where the others are. The shaking guide explains that the space inside the tree is distorted. Students might meet each other by chance on lower floors, or they might never meet at all. Vikir looks sharply at the fairy, sensing that it is telling the truth about how the tower works. The guide then reveals an important rule. If even one person reaches the bottom and escapes, everyone trapped inside will be freed, whether they are alive or dead. Because of this rule, the participants only have two choices: wait helplessly for someone else to succeed, or fight to become the one who saves everyone. Vikir knows this is almost impossible, a cruel design made to create despair. In his past life, there was only one reason the students managed to escape and later write records about the tower. That miracle happened because of Camus Morgue, a genius who broke rules and did the unexpected, eventually becoming the iron-blooded empress. But this time, Camus avoided the trap outside, which means the one who saved them before is not here now. Vikir thinks of his classmates, Piggy, Tudor, Sancho, Bianca, Dolores, and Sinclair. He feels deep guilt for failing to protect his real friends and the heroes they could have become. Suddenly, a system warning appears, saying the area will soon collapse. Vikir decides that he must take responsibility for everything. He makes a firm decision to become the one survivor who will conquer the tower and save everyone inside. Red warning messages begin flashing rapidly, showing that the time limit for the floor has ended and destruction is about to begin. As the alerts flash, the goblin suddenly gags again and forces another item out of its throat. Rocks begin to fall from above as the panicked goblin hurriedly hands Vikir a rolled parchment, admitting it almost forgot this last reward. The system identifies it as a return scroll. It allows the user to go back once to the tutorial area, resetting their level completely. Strangely, the scroll has the words written on it. "Lord, where are you going?" The room starts collapsing faster, forcing Vikir to leave. The goblin happily says goodbye and wishes him luck. Vikir calmly walks away, easily avoiding the falling debris. Behind him, in the collapsing room, the goblin shows a dark and sinister smile. A system message confirms that Vikir has left the tutorial zone. His status updates, showing extremely high base abilities even though he is only level 1. It also reveals a new title he has earned. The title, Sewer Rat Hunter, increases his damage against rats and makes any status effects he causes, such as bleeding, burning, or poison, last longer. On the second floor, called the Familiar Land, there is a ruined courtyard with a large dead tree at its center, surrounded by broken buildings. As Vikir steps onto the cracked stone ground, he immediately recognizes the place. Now dressed in his academy uniform, he looks around with the small spider and realizes with shock that this is a destroyed copy of Colossio Academy. Dakarivia explains that Amdusias swallowed parts of the real world to feed the Tree of the Abyss. These swallowed places have become real parts of the tower. A glowing system screen suddenly appears, ordering all 108 students who survived the tutorial to gather at the central plaza. Dakarivia says this is a good chance to find his friends. But as Vikir thinks about the forced gathering, he feels a strong sense of danger about what might happen. At the ruined plaza, the surviving students gather, filled with fear and confusion. They are shocked by the environment and complain about the terrible experience of surviving the first floor. Dakarivia notices that Vikir's roommates are not there and bluntly suggests they might be dead. Vikir angrily tells the pendant to stay quiet. Nearby, Vikir notices a disturbance. An aggressive student is shouting at someone to leave. He sees a group of armed noble students bullying an unarmed commoner who has fallen to the ground. The commoner begs them for a weapon, but the nobles selfishly refuse, saying that whoever found the weapons first owns them. The situation becomes worse when one noble grabs the commoner by the hair and angrily asks if he still does not understand their harsh new reality. Holding a sword close to the boy's face, the noble insults him, saying that weak and slow commoners have no choice but to bow before nobles. After letting him go, the bully coldly tells him to try harder if he wants to survive. The other students begin to realize that the nobles use the gathering as a trap to take all the weapons for themselves. Suddenly, a purple dimensional crack tears open in the center of the plaza, and everyone stares in shock. A strange voice echoes from the portal, happily greeting the 108 participants and commenting on how lively they already are. A horrifying furry creature with sharp claws, fangs, and a skull-like face steps out of the portal. It introduces itself as Bajist, the guide fairy of the second floor, and cheerfully asks if they enjoyed the tutorial. The students remain silent, staring at the monster with fear, though some arrogant nobles do not seem impressed. The silence breaks when the lead noble bully proudly declares that the tutorial was easy. He arrogantly tells Bajist to hurry and start the next challenge, boldly saying he will conquer the dungeon and return as a legendary hero. He claims he is not afraid at all. In response, Bajist excitedly praises his bold spirit and agrees to begin immediately. With a cheerful tone, Bajist announces a very simple mission for the second floor. Without warning, several purple portals suddenly open around the plaza, surrounding all the students. The confident noble suddenly starts sweating as a low, threatening growl sounds right behind him. He turns to see terrifying, muscular demonic hounds with burning heads closing in on him. As the monsters surround the students, Bajist happily reveals the only objective of the second floor: survive. The arrogant noble who had just bragged about conquering the dungeon is now beaten badly and crying. He stammers in fear as his dreams fall apart. A huge fiery demonic hound clamps its jaws around his head and crushes it, killing him in a burst of blood while he screams. Chaos breaks out in the plaza as a pack of terrifying beasts rushes out from a dark portal. The remaining students run for their lives, shouting at everyone to escape. Among the fleeing crowd, Granui runs wildly, terrified by the slaughter happening behind him. When he looks back in shock, his face turns pale as he sees the cruel reality of the tower's trial. A system screen appears and clearly identifies the blood-covered monsters as hellhound. The detailed message classifies them as B+ rank creatures that bring unavoidable disaster. It also notes that the sulfur-like flames burning from their eyes and mouths will never go out until their prey is fully devoured. Floating above the destruction, the ugly floor guide, Barghest, happily confirms the cruel rules of the trial. Survive for 108 minutes against 108 hellhounds. Barghest jokingly says that since there are over 100 participants, they should last for some time. Below, the hellhounds chase the terrified students down the courtyard stairs without stopping. Granui runs into a dark corridor, realizing that fighting back is impossible because the tower's curse has reduced their physical abilities to only a small part of their normal strength. When he sees an open door leading to a dark room, he decides his best chance is to hide and stay quiet. He slips inside and forcefully pushes the heavy door shut behind him. But his short moment of relief disappears when he feels resistance on the door. Two frightened students push from the outside, begging Granui to let them in and saying they are his friends. Sweating and unsure, Granui holds the door tightly. He is torn between saving himself and helping them. He thinks that surviving together might be easier than hiding alone. Suddenly, the two students push the door open hard, knocking Granui to the ground as they rush inside his hiding place. Granui falls onto his back, confused and angry, asking what they are doing. The door slams shut again, but this time Granui is left outside in the corridor. From inside, one of the students coldly says that Granui never saw them as friends, only as tools to use. With cruel smiles, they say it is now their turn to use him and order him to act as bait for the monsters. Panicking, Granui bangs on the door and shouts that their betrayal makes no sense. They calmly reply that they will only let him back in after the hallway becomes quiet. Moving backward in fear, Granui looks down the corridor and sees a fiery hellhound staring at him in the darkness. The beast roars, raises its claws, and opens its massive jaws, dripping with burning flames as it prepares to attack. With no way to defend himself and abandoned by others, Granui sits frozen on the floor as the monster comes closer. Tears run down his face as despair overwhelms him. He shuts his eyes tightly and trembles, preparing for the pain of being eaten. After a moment, he slowly opens his tear-filled eyes, confused because the deadly bite never came. Standing in front of him protectively is Vikir, holding a drawn blade, his eyes glowing red in the darkness. Granui calls out his name in complete shock. He watches in amazement as Vikir stands over the headless body of the hellhound. Still on the ground, Granui stammers and asks if Vikir was also pulled into the trial. He is shocked that Vikir killed a hellhound alone and wonders how an archer can handle a sword so well. Sweat forms on his face as he stares at the red aura blade extending from Vikir's hand. Recognizing the dangerously familiar fighting style, Vikir calmly calls out to his classmate. Still shaken, Granui responds nervously. Vikir then coldly tells him that he has a specific role for him. Granui swallows nervously, looking tense and afraid as he waits to hear what Vikir wants. A moment later, Granui steps into the corridor, showing his ridiculous new role. He is wearing improvised armor, a cooking pot as a helmet, a pot lid as a shield, and holding a ladle and spatula in both hands. Inside, he curses himself, feeling embarrassed and angry, wondering why he ever agreed to this. A flashback shows their earlier conversation. Granui looks at Vikir in anger and asks if he seriously expects him to act as bait. He refuses strongly, saying that just because Vikir saved him does not mean he will agree to something so dangerous. Calmly, Vikir mentions the name Sinclair. Knowing about Granui's secret crush, Vikir promises to help him get closer to her if he cooperates. Granui blushes, his tough attitude breaking as he eagerly asks if Vikir is telling the truth. Vikir leans closer and quietly says that it is a lie. Granui realizes he has been tricked. Even so, Granui becomes flustered and steps back, pretending that a noble like him could never like a commoner. Trying to protect his pride, the blushing Granui agrees to the plan, saying it is just a one-time favor because Vikir saved his life. Back in the present, Granui grits his teeth, realizing he must have been crazy. Still, he decides to go through with it for Sinclair. Fully acting his role, he bangs his ladle against his pot helmet and shield, creating a loud noise. He shouts insults at the monsters, declaring that the great Granui will face them. His distraction works perfectly. Two huge hellhounds come out of the shadows, their mouths dripping with burning fire. The moment Granui sees them, his fake confidence disappears. His bold shouting turns into weak, tearful fear. Soon, a whole pack of fiery hellhounds rushes toward him. Granui turns around and runs as fast as he can, screaming in terror while the flaming beasts chase him closely. In desperation, Granui throws himself to the ground and slides aside just as the monsters leap forward. Because of their speed, the entire pack runs past him without noticing and continues down the corridor. The doors shut, trapping the hounds inside. Vikir steps out with his red blade and explains that hellhounds only move straight when chasing prey. He points out their fatal weakness: they cannot easily stop or change direction. With a cold smile and glowing red eyes, Vikir prepares his blade and says this reminds him of his childhood. He sarcastically welcomes the beasts to a reunion. A brutal slaughter follows. The painful cries of the hounds echo as thick blood splashes across the large glass windows of the corridor. After some time, Granui finally catches his breath and calls out Vikir's name. Holding his ladle tightly, he becomes worried by the silence and fears that Vikir might have been killed. He slowly opens the door a little, complaining that Vikir should have at least done his job as bait before dying. But Granui's eyes widen in total shock at what he sees. Inside the bright hall lit by chandeliers, Vikir stands unharmed, though completely covered in blood, holding a sack. Around him lie the dead bodies of all the hellhounds. Still holding his utensils, Granui asks if Vikir killed all the monsters by himself and wonders if he used traps. Looking back calmly, Vikir asks what traps he is talking about. He shows a heavy sack filled with glowing orbs that increase stats, taken from the monsters. He casually mentions that agility points are usually the hardest to get. A system window appears, showing Vikir's base stats, all around 200 even though he is only level 1. Vikir looks disappointed and wonders why his hidden abilities have not unlocked despite his performance. He concludes that he needs a harder challenge to unlock them. Nearby, Granui watches Vikir's calm and ruthless behavior, questioning if this person is really the quiet archer he once knew. Above them, the ugly floor guide Vargas looks down in shock, stuttering after seeing the massacre. Barghest floats down from a purple rift, amazed that they destroyed the entire hellhound pack and noting that their strength is unusual for this stage. Seeing that there is still over an hour left on the timer, angry Granui demands to know why the trial has not ended and orders the guide to take them to the next floor. Barghest's surprise slowly turns into a cruel smile. The guide admits it underestimated them but says the tower must adjust the difficulty to keep the challenge fair. With a cheerful snap of its fingers, the grotesque creature suddenly increases the danger. A swirling dark vortex appears in front of Vikir and Granui. Vargas happily says that now they have a new opponent to face. From the portal, a massive creature comes out. It has 3 demonic heads and glowing eyes. It is introduced as the guardian dog of hell. The giant 3-headed beast roars loudly as Vargas happily reveals its true name, Cerberus. A system message appears describing the new threat. Cerberus is an A+ rank monster, 7 meters tall. It is the ultimate beast of the underworld, existing only to tear apart any soul that tries to escape from hell.